Hi, welcome back to DEF CON 3. I'm KT McFarland, and we are very honored today to have one of the most brilliant, thoughtful guys on the Middle East writing today, a man who's just received one of the highest awards that journalism can give, which is the Eric Brendel Award, and that is Dr. Fouad Ajami of the Hoover Institute at Stanford University. We're delighted to have you with us.
Thank you, KT. Thank you.
And Dr. Ajami, one of the things that you've been writing about recently, you've talked a lot about the Arab Spring.
Right.
And you particularly have talked about Syria. You've had an editorial in the Wall Street Journal. You've spoken out about Syria and what you perceive as a real danger in Syria today. Could you elaborate?
Well, I think Syria has become a slaughterhouse, if you will.
Slaughterhouse.
Absolutely. And when you take a look at the struggle, the cruel struggle between the regime on the one hand and its people on the other, and when you see the Syrian people rushing to the Syria-Turkey frontier, making their way out of their country, when you read the horror stories that they are bringing with them from that country, and when you see the fault line between the Alawi community, this Alawite community, which is the community of Bashar al-Assad, which is the community from which the regime hails, and the majority population of the Sunnis, the gap between ruler and ruled, there is something we have seen, something terrible. This is almost like North Korea by the Mediterranean, if you will, the nature of the regime. And the mask has fallen. The idea that Bashar al-Assad, a young man in his early 40s, who came to power 11 years ago with all kinds of hopes that he will change his father's legacy, that he will open up his country, all these illusions have now been shed.
And you know, there was an article about his wife in Vanity Fair magazine about 2 months ago.
Yes, Rose in the Desert.
Rose in the Desert, and that he was a great reformer. And so all these things have been shown to be total lies.
Well, in fact, I mean, we don't really have to go to Vogue magazine, though I think it's very illustrative and very telling. Take a look at the kinds of things our officials have been saying, our leaders have been saying.
Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton kept talking of him as a reformer. And then there is the cheerleader, if you will, of the Bashar al-Assad regime in Washington. And that is actually the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, John Kerry, who came back from repeated trips to Syria and came back with tales of the moderation, of the secularism, of the temperament of Bashar al-Assad, and tried to sell us on the idea of Bashar as this great moderate. It has long pedigree. It goes right back to the year 2000, when Bashar became president at age 34, when the constitution was rewritten at the behest of the old man, Hafiz Assad. And our Secretary of State at the time, and that is Madeleine Albright, came back from Damascus again singing the praise of Bashar al-Assad. This is a trail 11 years long.
So we've been snookered. But what happens next? I mean, if you look at, for example, the United States is now involved militarily in Libya. We say we're leading from behind, we say it's NATO, but it's really us. And the justification given was that we were protecting civilians, we were protecting innocents. But there's a much bigger slaughter going on in Syria.
Well, you know, that's I mean, I actually, at one point, thinking about the Syrians and the Libyans, I wrote in one place, I think it was edited out in the Wall Street Journal, I said, the Syrians must envy the Libyans. The Syrians must envy the Libyans, because the Libyans at least have a mandate from the international community. And they had a mandate, if you will, from the League of Arab States. The League of Arab States that never has managed to condemn a dictator, condemn Muammar Gaddafi, because Gaddafi was a brigand, and Gaddafi had stepped out of the confines of the Arab world in many ways. He made himself king of the kings of Africa. He turned his back on the Arabs, and they turned their backs on him. In the case of the Syrians, they are still within that Arab mandate and that Arab consensus. And the mandate given to protect the Libyan people has been denied the Syrian people.
Why?
Well, I think because Syria has always managed to be a more central player in the game of nations. There is this Syrian regime with Hafiz Assad, the founder of it, in 1970.
This is the father of the
Absolutely. The father of the current president, who came to power in 1970. This regime has 40 years of playing the game, father and son. They played the powers, they played the French, they played the Americans, they played the Russians. So they are more centrally located in the game of nations.
Physically located.
Well, not just that, but within the rules of the game. Take a look at the United Nations Security Council. It issued a resolution for the protection of the Libyan people. Security Council resolution
we can't even get one now
1973. There is no such thing in the case of Syria. So the Syrians can kill their people at will. This is the verdict that we are seeing now.